So we're jumping into one of the trickiest but potentially most rewarding moves a business can make, the brand extension. And just so you know, all the ideas we're talking about come from the book Strategic Brand Management by Alexander Chernev, a marketing professor at Northwestern University.
It really is a high-stakes game, isn't it? I mean, it's all about leverage. How do you take all the trust and the equity you've built over years, maybe even decades, and use it for something new without, completely wrecking the original brand in the process?
We're going to start with the basics. What exactly is a brand extension? And maybe even more importantly, what is it not?
Yep. And from there, we'll get into the two main directions you can go. The vertical stretch, which is all about moving up or down the price ladder, and then the horizontal leap, where you jump into totally new product areas.
Then we have to talk about the dangers, the big risks that come with either of those moves, before we give you a really practical framework to help you make the right call.
And we'll wrap it all up with what it really comes down to, this incredible balancing act that every leader has to get right. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's really define our terms here, because the actual definition is a lot more specific than most people think, and honestly, the details matter a lot.
At its core, a brand extension is really just a bet. You're betting that all the goodwill, the recognition, the feeling people have about your brand in one area can be transferred over to something completely new.
Right. I mean, Starbucks is the perfect example. They built this global empire on selling coffee in their cafes, but the second they put that famous green logo on a pint of ice cream, they stepped into a totally different world, the grocery store freezer aisle. That leap from the cafe to the freezer, that is a brand extension.
And this is exactly where people get confused. So when Starbucks rolls out the pumpkin spice latte every fall, that is not a brand extension. Why? Because Starbucks is already in the business of selling coffee drinks. A new flavor is just a new version of what they already do. We call that a product line extension.
Exactly. Nobody is shocked when a coffee company sells a new kind of coffee. But ice cream? Well, that starts to change what the name Starbucks can actually mean to you. It expands the brand's territory. And that tiny little distinction is where companies make or lose a fortune.
So once you've decided you're going to go for it, the first big question is, which direction? Do you go up, down, or sideways? Let's start with that vertical stretch.
This is all about playing with price and really with perception. Are you going to take your brand upscale into luxury territory, or are you going to try to make it available to everyone?
Yeah, the choice is pretty stark. If you go upscale, you're chasing prestige, you're chasing a different kind of customer, and let's be honest, you're chasing those much bigger profit margins. But if you go downscale, you're playing a totally different game. It's a volume game. You're hoping to use your brand's reputation to pull in a much bigger audience that couldn't afford you before. Each one of those paths is tempting, for sure, but they both have their own hidden traps.
The appeal of going upscale is so powerful. I mean, think about it. Why would you spend a fortune and a decade trying to build a new luxury brand from scratch, like Toyota did with Lexus, if you could just borrow the credibility from the brand you already have? It seems like a shortcut to the good life, right?
And if you actually pull it off, there's this halo effect that can lift up your entire brand. Take E&J Gallo. For the longest time, they were known for affordable, mass-market wines. But when they introduced their premium Signature Series, it started to change how people thought about the quality of their entire portfolio.
But, and this is a big but, sometimes the very thing that makes your brand strong becomes an anchor that drags you down. Volkswagen learned this the hard way, and it was a very, very expensive lesson with their car, the Phaeton. You know, it was an incredible car. It was technically amazing, aimed right at the Mercedes S-Class. But they just couldn't escape their own name. Volkswagen literally means the people's car. So a $100,000 people's car is just a contradiction in terms. The brand name that should have been their greatest asset ended up being their biggest problem.
Okay, so if climbing that ladder is so risky, why not just go down? It almost seems like a no-brainer, right? Take a premium brand, put it on a cheaper product, and just watch the sales roll in.
It really does seem like the easy way out. But as we're about to see, that path is just littered with landmines that can do some serious long-term damage to your brand.
The first and maybe the most dangerous risk is dilution. A brand like Chanel or Bulgari is built on this idea of exclusivity, of being almost unattainable. The minute you make it too easy to get, you risk shattering that entire image and destroying what makes the brand special in the first place. And the second danger is way more immediate. You can see it right on the profit and loss statement. It's called cannibalization. Porsche's Boxster is a classic example. It was designed to bring new, younger buyers into the Porsche family, and it worked. But it also gave people who are maybe saving up for a very high-profit 911 an easier, cheaper way to get that Porsche badge on their car. So you might sell more cars, but you could actually end up making way less money.
All right, so we've covered moving up and down the price ladder. Now let's talk about moving sideways. This is the horizontal leap. This is where a brand jumps into a completely new product category. And this is where things can get really interesting and sometimes really strange.
You know, if you want to see a horizontal leap done with just absolute genius-level thinking, you have to look at the Michelin Guide. It's so easy to forget that Michelin is a tire company.
That's the craziest part. Back in 1900, they weren't trying to become the world's most respected food critics. They were just trying to sell more tires. There were hardly any cars on the road in France, so they created this guide with maps and restaurant tips, all as a long-term plan to get people to drive more and, you guessed it, wear out their tires faster.
It's incredible. Over 100 years, a tire company somehow became the most trusted name in fine dining. It's just a masterclass in strategic thinking and patience.
The whole secret to a successful horizontal leap is synergy. The extension just has to make sense. Crest White Strips is a perfect example. You've got a brand that's all about healthy teeth, moving into teeth whitening. It's a totally logical, natural fit. They're just leveraging the credibility they already have. Now compare that to Harley-Davidson selling cake decorating kits. I mean, come on. The brand's identity is about freedom, rebellion, the open road. What on earth does that have to do with putting frosting on a birthday cake? Nothing. The disconnect was so bad it became this legendary case study in business schools of exactly what not to do.
So, whether you're trying to move up and down or side to side, you're always up against two big enemies: brand dilution and brand disconnect.
Right, and if you don't really truly understand what those two things mean, you're basically flying blind into a storm.
Brand dilution is like death by 1,000 cuts. It's what happens when you stretch a brand so thin across so many random products that it just stops meaning anything specific anymore.
And the poster child for this has to be Pierre Cardin. At one point, that name meant Parisian high fashion, but because of years and years of just reckless licensing, you could find the Pierre Cardin name on frying pans, on sunglasses, on bed sheets. I think they even had it on cans of sardines. When your brand can mean anything, it eventually means nothing.
Brand disconnect is a little different, but it's just as fatal. This isn't about stretching your brand too thin. It's about stretching it in a direction that just fundamentally clashes with what people think your brand is all about. Pond's is a great example here. For decades, it was a brand people trusted for skincare, cold creams, beauty lotions. So when they tried to launch a toothpaste, it just felt weird. It was off. The idea of beauty creams actually worked against the idea of oral hygiene. It wasn't just a stretch, it was like a head-on collision of what the brand meant.
Okay, so we've seen the amazing successes and we've seen the spectacular failures. The real question now is, how do you actually make the right call?
Exactly. How do you know when you should use the brand you have versus when it's just smarter to build a totally new one from the ground up? That is where having a solid framework comes in.
This framework basically gives you 4 key questions to ask. First up, the market opportunity. Is there actually a group of customers out there with a need that isn't being met, and is your brand the perfect one to fill it?
Second, you have to be really honest about your company resources. Is your company built for this? I mean, a company like Procter & Gamble is basically a brand building factory. It's what they do. Is it what you do? Or would your resources be better spent on your core business?
Third is category compatibility, and we've talked a lot about this. Does your brand's meaning actually add value to this new product? Does it make people want it more?
And finally, there's meaning spillover. This is the one that so many people forget to think about. How is this new thing going to change how people see your original core brand? Because you have to know it will change it one way or another.
And that last point really gets to the absolute heart of it. Every single brand extension is a gamble.
It is. It's a total high-wire act. You're constantly trying to balance the chance for this huge reward against the very real risk of a catastrophic fall that could damage your brand forever.
This quote really says it all, doesn't it? The goal isn't just to be bigger. It's not just to be in more categories. The goal is to find that strategic sweet spot.
Right. It's about finding the biggest possible group of people you can serve without stretching what your brand means so much that it just snaps and loses all its power. That's the constant battle between how broad you are and how deep your meaning is.
And this is probably the most important thing to remember. A great brand extension is a two-way street. It can't just be a parasite, sucking value away from the parent brand to help the new product.
No, the extension has to give something back. It has to make the core brand seem more modern or more innovative or bring in a new cool audience. If it's only taking, it's not a brand extension. It's a brand killer.
Okay, so let's end with a real-world thought experiment to tie this all together. Think about Tesla.
a brand that is all about cutting-edge tech, sleek design, and a premium, high-performance image. Now, imagine they launched something called Tesla Home, a line of affordable, mass-market kitchen appliances. A toaster, a blender, a microwave. Is that a brilliant move into the smart home, using their tech reputation to supercharge their growth? Or is it a disastrous downscale extension that would instantly dilute their premium status, damage that high-tech halo, and basically short-circuit the very thing that makes the Tesla brand special? There's no easy answer, and that, right there, is the brutal but beautiful challenge of extending a brand.